Is metagaming a good thing? In this week's edition of the Versus series, I argue with myself about the benefits and detriments of metagaming. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese, and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started today, I want to remind you all that our Kickstarter for Blackstorm Realms is still very much live and kickin'. If you want a campaign setting that will seamlessly tie together literally every campaign setting, you should look this one up. It is going to be stellar. For more info about that, take the link to the Kickstarter page in the description box below. And again, thank you to everyone who has supported us thus far. We are really pumped to keep working on this, and if we continue at the pace we're going right now, it is likely that we will hit every single stretch goal. So keep it up, it absolutely means the world. And of course, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It sounds cheesy, and I know every single YouTuber does this stuff and everyone hates it, but it is actually so important. Your interactions basically tell the algorithm that you like my video and that other people will like it too. And it really does take into account how many viewers are subscribed and all that little stuff. So if you like my stuff, it would make a huge difference if you click those buttons. And if you don't like me, DM me and we'll settle this once and for all. I've been thinking about a lot of D&D related things lately. Shocker, I know. But one conversation that tends to come up a whole lot between myself and my other D&D playing friends is metagaming. For those who are unfamiliar, metagaming is essentially the use of out-of-game knowledge to inform in-game decisions. Basically, your character may not know something, but the player does, and so the player controlling the character uses their player knowledge to make the character do something that the character otherwise probably wouldn't do. That second explanation really cleared things up, didn't it? How about I give you a classic example of metagaming that most DMs have probably seen. A troll is attacking your party. Currently you're low level, say level 2 or 3. One of your players lights a torch and tries to set that troll on fire. Some of you might be asking why that is, and that's great. I want you in my party if you're actually unfamiliar with this. Anyway, trolls regenerate health every round, and the only way to stop it is by dealing acid or fire damage. In fact, a troll can't die unless it starts its turn with 0 HP and cannot regenerate. So now, operating under the assumption that this character did not know anything about trolls before this fight, it is clear that this player used their out-of-game knowledge to make a decision that their in-game character probably wouldn't have made otherwise. That is metagaming. And there's always been a discussion about whether or not this kind of play is problematic or just another hurdle of playing D&D. It may sound obvious right away, but there is a bit more to it than on the surface, so let's get into it. Yes. Clearly, metagaming is problematic. Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game. You are playing a role. The entire idea of this game is that you, the player, are playing as a totally different person, your character. If you use out-of-game knowledge to inform in-game decisions, you are not only ruining that particular moment, you're breaking down the single most important aspect of the game. Regardless of whether or not you like more combat-heavy games or more role-play-heavy games, more adventure-based games or more intrigue-based games, all that stuff aside, every single person at that table is there to immerse themselves in a fictional world and put themselves in the shoes of a character they created. The moment you start to inform your decisions with player knowledge, all of that goes away. This is the basis of every role-playing game that has ever existed. And not only are you screwing things up at a fundamental level, you're also screwing up the game at a mechanical level. The game is balanced around the idea that you're playing characters who exist in this world with a set amount of knowledge. The amount of knowledge can grow as the characters do, but they certainly don't just start with a compendium of D&D lore tucked away in their brains. The first time your characters encounter a beholder, do you think they're going to know how to fight it? If your characters know nothing about beholders, they would surely start the fight a bit differently than if they knew about the 10 random eye rays and the anti-magic cone and all that. And if that's the case, wouldn't that make the encounter a bit harder? Your GM has spent all this time prepping an encounter that is balanced around the idea that your characters have never fought, seen, or even heard of this monster before. So if you come in with full knowledge of its abilities, you have taken down the difficulty of that encounter significantly. And knowledge of monsters is only the tip of the iceberg with metagaming. What if you're playing through a module for the second time? What if you're searching for a particular magic item that your character has no business knowing even exists, just because you know it would be great on your character? What if you know exactly where to find that item because you're familiar with the setting and you start influencing the direction your party goes? Can you actually tell me that that isn't problematic? Metagaming flies in the face of everything you want to happen in a game of D&D. You want immersion, you want a focus on character, and most importantly, you want to inspire a feeling of adventure. And that simply isn't possible when you're playing the game like your character knows what happens next. I hear what you're saying, and I get it. Metagaming can be annoying, but I think you're framing it in the wrong mindset. Metagaming is a natural byproduct of experience. An experienced player thinks of D&D differently than someone who has never played before, as is the case for literally everything else in the entire world. Once you know something, unless you forget about it, you can't just eliminate that knowledge from your mind. So rather than trying to blame the players for knowing stuff, try using a bit of creativity on the GM side of things. You'd be amazed at how quickly the player brain is tricked when you simply reskin a monster. If they're a group of level 1 adventurers fighting a few goblins, don't describe them as green-skinned bipedal creatures with sharp claws and teeth. Try describing them as hunched simian-like creatures with pockmarked skin and patched fur, and then just use the exact same stat block as a goblin. Suddenly, your players won't know exactly what they're fighting no matter how many games of D&D they've played. They may eventually be able to put it together once you get further into the combat, but early on, they'll be just as confused as a brand new player fighting a goblin for the first time. If your players aren't able to separate their in-game knowledge from their out-of-game knowledge, then it just takes a little bit more work from your end to make things a bit different than the last time they encountered it. And honestly, if the players knowing the abilities of a monster is enough to ruin the encounter, then I think you may need to just work on your encounters a bit. Just because a player may know what a monster does, doesn't mean that they know there's a trap right in front of the monster, or that this monster in particular has legendary actions, or that the building the players are fighting in is moments from crumbling and crushing them all beneath it. Slight changes to the setting in which you encounter a monster can make that combat feel wildly different, and knowing that you need fire to kill a troll should be the least of the player's concerns if the GM is using creative methods. What about a troll that uses fire and doesn't have that same weakness that most trolls have? Jetpack 7's already done that, by the way, Masters and Minions. Check it out. It is really simple to subvert the expectations of your players, even the most experienced ones, in a way that will make metagaming either impossible or pointless. If you're running a module that your players have run before, make changes. If your player is looking for a particular item that would be good for them, give it to them as part of the main plot so the party doesn't have to go off and do something random for a particular item for one member of the party. And if your player is trying to control the party for their metagaming needs, then your problem is the player, not their out-of-game knowledge. Again, there are so many ways to handle metagaming that can prevent it from becoming a problem at all. All it takes is some base level creativity and a tiny bit more thought from the GM. Alright, so I've given this one some thought, and as usual, my opinion may not be a super popular one. I don't think metagaming is a huge problem. There have been times when it's been annoying to me that a character behaves a certain way because it was clearly player-informed rather than character-informed, but at no point have I felt that it has taken away from the game. It was certainly a bit of a learning curve, because the first campaign I ever ran was everyone's first campaign, aside from a couple one-shots here or there, and then we ran a Westmarch-style campaign and learned a lot about D&D, and the next homebrew campaign I ran after that was composed largely of very experienced players. So it took me a bit to get into the swing of running that game, because experienced players truly do just think about the game differently than new players. From their game knowledge to their decision making, everything is totally different, and will range anywhere from smarter and more calculated than a new player to more chaotic and reckless than a new player. It really does require a different mindset as a GM, but once you've wrapped your head around that style of game, it starts to come pretty easily. Small changes make a huge difference. And honestly, at times, I think metagaming is a good thing. Not so much using game knowledge, but using the knowledge that you are playing a game to inform character decisions. Now, I've mentioned this in past videos, and I'll probably mention it in several more videos in the future, but it is so important to use the knowledge that you are playing a game with friends when making decisions. This is all imaginary. It may feel real at times, but at the end of the day, all that matters is that you are playing a game with friends and that your decisions should always take that into account. It is one of my least favorite things when people complain that the intro hook to an adventure isn't strong enough, as if they need some sort of internal justification to play the campaign. I'm sorry, but if you are so invested in roleplay that you can't justify building a character that wants to go on an adventure, then take a commoner stat block and go play house. Again, you sat down at the table with the intention of playing the game of D&D that the GM has prepared for you. Use that knowledge when making decisions. It will make everyone's life easier. And that's all I have to say on the subject. I hope this was helpful to some people. These videos are a great place for me to just go on tangents about subjects I think about a lot anyway, so let me know what you all think in the comments. Is metagaming just a hurdle, or did I miss a way that it can be game ruining? Also, let me know in the comments what kind of content you'd like to see. Is there something you feel is missing from the D&D YouTube community that I could add to? There's a lot of stuff out there, and it would be awesome if I could cover a topic that isn't discussed super regularly amongst the D&D YouTubers out there. I look forward to seeing what you all have to say, but until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.